Good afternoon and welcome to the City Club of Cleveland. My name is Paul Harris and I am president of the City Club's Board of Directors. I am pleased to introduce today's speaker, the president of The Ohio State University, Dr. Michael V. Drake. During the past 9 months, the City Club has welcomed recently appointed Ohio College and University presidents to the podium to share their thoughts and visions for the future. We're pleased to have Dr. Drake here today to share his perspectives. The Ohio State University was founded in 1870 as the Ohio Agricultural and Mechanical College. It was established in accordance with the Morrill Act of 1862, which provided land grants to states to establish colleges specializing in agriculture and the mechanic arts. The college developed into a comprehensive university and in 1878 changed its name to what we refer to today as the Ohio State University. Dr. Drake became Ohio State's 15th president on June 30, 2014. He has been a leader in higher education for 3 decades, serving as chancellor of the University of California, Irvine for 9 years prior to his arrival at Ohio State. Under Dr. Drake's leadership, UC Irvine was recognized as a national leader in increasing minority enrollment and in sustainability. The university achieved aggressive energy efficiency goals and earned a top ranking on Sierra Magazine's 2014 list of the 10 coolest schools. Shortly before leaving UC Irvine, Dr. Drake was the 27th recipient of the University of California Presidential Medal for his exemplary service to the university. In awarding the medal, University of California President Janet Napolitano said of Dr. Drake, quote, this is an amazing quote, "Your steadfast efforts as an eminent physician and highly respected educator have ensured that the lamp of learning continues to burn brightly, illuminating the educational path to a better life for countless underrepresented and disenfranchised students," end quote. Today, Dr. Drake presides over an institution with over 44,000 undergraduates, the nation's 4th largest university campus based on undergraduate enrollment. In addition to its Columbus campus, the university has extension campuses in Worcester, Lima, Mansfield, Marion, and Newark. During his first 2 years in office, Dr. Drake has overseen a record year in student applications, fundraising, and graduation rates, hired a new leader for the university's renowned medical center, celebrated 5 national championships, and I could only think of football and wrestling, but there must be 3 others there somewhere, and launched a $400 million initiative to lower student costs while increasing excellence. While the costs of higher education continue to soar, Ohio State has embarked on the 2nd year of an in-state undergraduate tuition freeze, all part of Dr. Drake's vision to return Ohio State to its roots as a land-grant university while continuing to be a global leader in research. I am very pleased and honored to present on behalf of the City Club of Cleveland, Dr. Michael V. Drake.
Thank you, Paul. Very kind and very, very nice to be here this afternoon. Great to be back in Cleveland as well. We have traveled to Cleveland about a half a dozen times since arriving in Ohio now a little more than 18 months ago, and we've been here to see Lake Erie and to see the Rock Hall and many other things that are here, and it really is a great town, a great part of the country, and we like being here a lot. Tonight I think we see the orchestra and we watch on TV at least when the Cavs are playing, and that's a great thing. It's also a home to many Ohio State alumni, several of whom I know are here this afternoon, so great to see you. Always great to see Buckeyes. And I'm happy to be here and be able to see our former trustee, Ron Ratner, who's a great supporter of the university. I know a great civic leader here in Cleveland. So great to have a chance to join all of you. And then also to be at the City Club, which has such a long and illustrious history of really bringing to the community and to the broader world thoughts from all points of view and an opportunity to share them with the citizens and those who might listen in other places. So it's a great opportunity and a great honor to be a part of that long conversation. I will say that my Ohio connections began with my mother, who was raised in Youngstown and graduated from East High in Youngstown. I have on the wall of my office her East High annual from 1933 with her picture looking down on me every day, making sure I'm getting it right. And one of the things that's important about our university is it really does represent all of Ohio, all 88 counties, really from north to south, east to west. It's great to travel the state and to meet Buckeyes wherever we go, but to know that we're really connected with the entire state is a wonderful thing. And it really speaks to our land grant mission, as Paul mentioned in the introduction. We were founded as a land grant university, and our job, our mission, is to create knowledge that we share with our students, but also through research create knowledge that we share with the broader community, with the broader region, and with the broader world. And we're proud to be a part of that great tradition. Our scientists are, in fact, working very hard in many, many areas. One of the things that we've been doing that works with Lake Erie is we have a thing called the Field to Faucet program that's looking at the algal blooms and other issues that have been such a challenge for some of our fellow citizens, and we have a $1 million initiative to work there. We've also worked at Grand Lake St. Mary's and looking at the water quality there, and so we are very interested in making sure the things that we do at our university are relevant to people in all parts of the state and all parts of the nation. At Stone Lab, our island campus near Sandusky, the faculty and students are conducting research to help protect Lake Erie's wildlife and fish life, and looking at water quality, as I said, which is such an important issue. We often hear it said that what oil was to the 20th century, water will be to the 21st century, and something we have to work very, very hard to protect. We do extension work in Cuyahoga County. We are providing resources and education to support community gardening, community development, and agricultural businesses. And these are very, very important to the growth of our state and our citizens. And my vision for the next 5 years for our university is that we do things that support our Ohio students and families and citizens in a variety of ways. There are three sort of overarching themes that I like for us to focus on at our university. The first is affordability, access, and excellence. The second is community engagement, really being connected to our communities. And the third is diversity and inclusive excellence, really making sure that we're there for all of our citizens and we can all work together. Let me talk a little bit about these three areas, and we can perhaps touch on them more when we have time for questions after my formal comments. So our commitment to access, affordability, and excellence derives from our origins as a land grant university, as a university founded for the people. I had the opportunity to tour southern and western Ohio during this last summer. I was actually here in Cleveland first and then went to southern and western Ohio after that on a series of tours where I had a chance to talk with people and talk with them about what the university means to them or how they feel about higher education today. And one of the themes that ran through many of those conversations was a concern that American families have about the cost of higher education. And anybody here in the audience have children or others who are recently in or currently in college? Anybody concerned about the cost of their, okay, yeah. It's actually quite expensive. And so we want to make sure that as we provide excellence in our education and provide access, we also do what we can to maintain affordability. To that end, last spring, we announced a $400 million plan for these next 5 years, $200 million of cost reductions, $200 million of new revenue to try to help keep college more affordable. And we do these things not at the cost of, but while we're continuing to elevate the academic excellence of the university. Making it inexpensive at the cost of excellence is no bargain. We are really interested in value, and for value to be great, we have to raise we have to improve our affordability, but also improve our value all the time, and so we work hard on this. One of the first steps of this plan was to increase our need-based aid pool, and so we last year increased the need-based aid to our students by $15 million. This was in a series of grants given to low and middle-income students. We were able to extend grants of $1,000 to $1,500 to 12,000 students, affecting students all over Ohio, including 1,000 from Cuyahoga County and 1,000 from surrounding counties, and we were very pleased to be able to do that. This coming year, we're going to expand that program and add $20 million to our need-based scholarship pool, and that will allow us to go from 12,000 students to 15,000 who will get these affordability grants. And this will include now the students at our regional campuses. And so we want to do what we can in each case to kind of narrow that gap between what the students and their families can afford and what the cost of of higher education is here in Ohio, and we're very pleased to be able to do that. One of the students actually who received one of our affordability grants is Devontae Haynes, and he's created 2 mentoring programs while he has been at Ohio State, and they're encouraging urban and Appalachian students to pursue higher education. In fact, Devontae's in Cleveland today, visiting high schools to talk about these mentoring programs, and he's the first in his family to attend college, a real superstar, and just the kind of person we are excited about being able to help, and we're very interested in looking to see all the great things he does in the future. Let me say that our regional campuses that I mentioned, the first year of our affordability grants were on the Columbus campus. It was a new program that we rolled out right away. We rolled it out, we committed to find $15 million in administrative savings. And just to make sure that we weren't saying we're going to have these administrative savings and then we would take a PowerPoint bar graph and show that we'd had these savings and applaud, we decided to commit ourselves to actually doing something with the money. And so what we committed ourselves to was actually giving the money to the students before we'd even identified where we were going to get it from. So we wanted to really put ourselves on notice. I described it as kind of like cliff diving. So we were going to jump first and then try and make sure there was a wave there by the time that we we hit. And I said it was like cliff diving at night, actually, but we wanted to be able to make sure there was something there. But we wanted to put ourselves, really give ourselves the challenge of saying we're going to return this money to our students first and then work really hard to achieve those savings to make sure that we can do this in an effective way. I'm happy to say we were able to do that, and I had hoped, and we were able to save more. And so next year we're going to increase that from $15 million to $20 million, and we want to continue building that forward. We did this, as I mentioned, though, by looking at administrative savings and not by compromising the quality of our institution or deviating in any way from our research mission or the other things that have made us one of the leading universities in the world. And we're going to continue to advance ourselves in both of these directions. And part of that ability was our ability to work with our governor and our state legislature to increase the amount of state funding that our university had. And through the support of Governor Kasich and the Senate President and the Speaker of the State Assembly, we were able to have the largest increase in SSI, or state share of instruction, in over 10 years. And so that was a very, very important part of balancing our affordability with our excellence. We appreciated that. The legislature also increased the Ohio Career, or the OCOG, the Ohio College Opportunity Grant program, and so that provided even more support more grant support for low-income students and their families, and again helped us to narrow that gap. And so we were very, very pleased to be able to do those things with the support of the legislature. I described it a little bit like Charlie Brown and Lucy and the football, if you know the extra point that Charlie Brown has not yet been allowed to kick. And that's because we announced a tuition freeze and a freeze in room and board. First time in 40 years we had a freeze of tuition and room and board. And we announced those before we had received the increases that we were hoping for from the legislature. So I felt that was a little bit like Charlie Brown, and the legislature was Lucy holding the ball in the springtime. But let me say, unlike Charlie, they actually held the ball and came through, and we really appreciate their support. I was sure it was going to happen a few moments after it did. And so but it was great to have those partners. And by being able to hold tuition flat this year, it was actually quite a magical thing. A student who graduates this May from The Ohio State University will be paying the same tuition that she paid when she arrived as a freshman 3.5 years ago. And that's just an amazing thing for us to be able to do during these difficult times. I'll allow you to erupt in silent applause. But that's something we're really, really pleased at being able to do. And we'll continue to moderate tuition as we go forward and continue to work on need-based financial aid. Balancing affordability and excellence is critical and extraordinarily complicated. And I will say that it's more complicated than just tuition. And so we look carefully at the role of tuition and making sure that our tuition is at appropriate levels. But we also look at things, as I mentioned, like increasing aid, particularly for low and middle income families. For us, that includes families up to just over $100,000 a year. Even if you're a middle income family at $100,000, the $25,000 to $30,000 of real cost for going to college makes more than a dent in a budget. That really, those families really do need support. And so we focus on low income families, but we also focus on middle income families as well, because we want our college to be, as I said, affordable. And we on our side, on the management side of the enterprise, work every day at being more effective and more efficient with what we do. We try to use the money that we have effectively. We try to continue to improve our product. And so that's the balance that we have. We promise to do the best we can as stewards of the resources that we have to invest them, and we promise to do the best we can to make our opportunities affordable and accessible for the students of Ohio. Here in Cleveland and surrounding areas, we've been working hard to keep pathways and access open. So for 27 years, our Young Scholars Program has been supporting academically talented first-generation college students in 9 of Ohio's largest urban school districts. About 20% of those students come from the Cleveland area. We're very pleased about that. And we're going to be adding scholarship funding for 15 additional students this next year. We're expanding that program. We say 15 students. I think we're going to probably do 25. But I had to look at my chief of staff there. Let me look away. We are certainly going to do at least 15 more of those scholarships this year. Just a few blocks away from here, we advance access to Ohio State through our Cleveland Regional Recruitment Center, located in the Terminal Tower next to our community partner, College Now. Ohio State Mansfield also works closely with community colleges in the area to provide programs and recruitment events. Along with dozens of universities and community organizations, Ohio State is a member of the Higher Education Compact of Greater Cleveland, and we're working collectively to help more students get into college and to graduate on time. The Compact is looking at how to increase student readiness and graduation rates, and that's a very, very important part of affordability. If you enter a college and go and don't get a degree, then the value is not nearly as high as if you get a degree. If you're able to get that degree in a reasonable amount of time, the cost of the degree is much less. And so when we think about affordability, a really important part of affordability is being able to get to your degree in a reasonable amount of time, and that's something that we think is very, very important. On behalf of Ohio State, I'm involved actively in the leadership of 5 national groups. These are national groups that look at higher education issues in a broad set of contexts. So let me say a word about them. One is the AAU, the Association of American Universities. I've been on the board of that for several years. These are 62, including 2 from Canada, of the most significant research universities in the world, and certainly in our country in Canada. Case Western is a member of this group, along with the Ohio State University, and then it's about half public, half private. You would know all of them, and they're all the ones you would think of, and so we have been a part of that organization for years and are very active. We have the Association of Land-Grant Universities, looking at now more than 275 public and land-grant universities, and I'm on that board and the chair of the Council of Presidents of that board. We have a new organization called the University Innovation Alliance. This is 11 large public research universities, and we're looking together at sharing information and best practices on helping students to graduate on time, and that's a great group. We meet 2 or 3 times a year, usually in conjunction with an APLU meeting. The presidents get together and we look at ways that we can share information on best practices to help all of our students graduate well. Ohio State's pleased to be among the most successful of these universities in graduation rates. Already we're at an 83% 6-year graduation rate, up from 68% 10 years ago. So we're already leaders, but we want to do what we can to help share the things that work so well for us with our colleagues to help them move along in that sphere. And I was very pleased in December, Ohio State was named as among the top 5 universities nationally for improving overall graduation rates, as well as also decreasing the gap in graduation rates between minority and non-minority students. And we're really, increasing rates overall is really important, but decreasing that gap, I think, is a very important thing for us to be able to do. And this particular award focused on the gap between minority and non-minority students, but we could also look, instead of minority students, we could also look at students from low-performing high schools or students from lower parts of the income distribution. And all colleges and universities tend to see a gap in graduations there. And we believe the better we do at our job of educating students, the narrower that gap will be. And we're very actively interested in moving along those ways. I'm also part of something called the American Talent Initiative, a brand new thing. It just got named about a month ago. And I'm on the steering committee of that. There are 4 of us at the initial stage. And this is really working to bring on board more than 200 universities to help do something to help create more access to high-quality higher education institutions for students who come from the lower half of the income, whose families are in the lower half of the income distribution. 3/4 to 80% of our students at the best performing universities, 3/4 to 80% or so of our students come from the upper half of the income distribution. And we think that that can't be right and can't be in the best interest of the country. We'd like to focus more attention on talented students in the lower half of the income distribution to make sure that they have their best chance to go to college. A study in 2012 found that of college-age students in the country, there are about 50,000 students, about 12,000 a year, about 50,000 students who had a GPA of 3.7 or above and an ACT or SAT score in the top 10%, but were not attending university. And we think this is a great loss for the country, and so we want to work together on identifying these students and creating a pathway for them to come to our universities. They're very much like the students we have now, but for some reason they're not there, and we think, gosh, if we can touch this, we can really create real opportunities for them and make a real change. And so I'm really happy to be a part of the ATI. And then I work with the NC2A, and the NC2A, of course, focuses on college athletics, a really important part of college life these days, a moderately important part of college life at the Ohio State University, if I may. But really important, I have so many good friends and colleagues there. I was on the board at my prior institution. I left the board when I changed conferences because you're a conference representative. But I stayed involved with the NC2A, and now I'm a co-chair of an initiative that the association is putting forth to look at graduation rates and success among student athletes, particularly in sports where the graduation rates and success of student athletes have been challenged, because it really is an organization of college and university presidents, and we're very much interested in the academic success of our students as well as their their athletic programs. So working with all 5 of those organizations, looking at this particular enterprise, the enterprise of higher education from different points of view, we're all working to try to do the same thing, and that is to elevate the quality and availability of the best higher education system in the world. I'm pleased and proud to say, actually, I mentioned those 5 major efforts, and it's the Ohio State University is the only university that's a part of all 5 of them. So we really are honored to have a position that allows us to be a part of all of those conversations, and hope to use that to help us make headway. As we focus on many of the aspects of access and affordability that I mentioned, and I talked about the importance of our research mission and some of the great things we're doing there, our educational mission is also extremely important. And so last May we convened a teaching and learning summit to look at the ways that we educate students and to see if we could learn more about how to do that better. And I'll pretend that you're a group of faculty I'm talking to, and when someone in my position talks to faculty about teaching and learning and improving, there's often a frown with the idea that means that we're not doing a great job already. And I want to make sure I dispel that notion and say we're doing a wonderful job, and among the most successful and progressive institutions of higher learning in the world, and our graduation rates and other things that monitor success are at all-time highs. So we're really excited about how well things are going. My question is, can we do even better, and what's it feel like to do even better? And let's decide that we're the best in the world. Can we be a little better than that tomorrow? And so we brought together a group of about 65 faculty to talk about this, to have a year-long conversation. And they've met now several times, and I think are making great progress toward actually establishing an institute by this summer that we'll use to help our faculty learn about best teaching methods, to help disseminate best practices, and then to do research on those practices to see that we're actually making a difference in the outcomes for our students. I'm very excited about this. I teach an undergraduate course. You heard them trained as a medical doctor, and I like that a lot. But when I began in my new role at my last institution, I thought it would be a good thing to teach an undergraduate course in a discipline different than the one that I'd been trained in. So I began to teach a course to undergraduates, to freshman undergraduates, and it's evolved into a course in civil rights, the Supreme Court, and the music of the civil rights era. And we weave those together. The music part is because I was interested in focusing on art and how art changed as the mindset, the social fabric of the country changed, and finding a way to reflect that, believing that art comes from the social, political, and personal circumstances of the artist, and so it doesn't just fall out of the air. And I thought if the students, 18, 19-year-olds, could look to see how people were feeling and expressing themselves as these changes were happening in the street and these changes were happening in the court, it would make it more than a two-dimensional thing that they were looking at on a page, but it would have a visceral connection. So I've enjoyed that very much. I teach in the spring semester, so I teach that course on Tuesdays and taught this week. And we've had a real good time with that. And it gets me, though, in the classroom with 18, 19-year-old freshmen and a chance to talk with them and to see what they're feeling. And we have a wonderful, wonderful time. So I believe that teaching is important. I went to the Teaching and Learning Summit last spring, and I read 2 books, and I changed the course from last year to this year based on things I read in the books, and it worked better. It worked better from my point of view, at least, but I'm happier. It must be half the battle. And so I try to learn and see what we're going to try to offer to our faculty to help their courses work better, and learning about it by doing it, I think, is the best way, and I've enjoyed that very, very much. Let me say that other things about our university. In September, we were pleased to be named as one of the world's most innovative universities. This is for contributions to science and technology and contributions to the global economy. And that goes back to our message of really teaching for Ohio but doing research for the world, and we're pleased about that. We're also pleased that for the 3rd straight year, the Wexner Medical Center at The Ohio State University was named as one of the top academic medical centers in the country on the basis of quality and safety for patients. There are 2 in Ohio that made that list of top 10. Actually, it was 13 because of a tie, but we're very, very pleased to be in that top 10 list. In fact, this year we were 3rd nationally in quality and safety by their measure, ranked behind NYU and the Mayo Clinic. And so and they can hear, I'm sure, footsteps for next year. We're moving forward there. We had also a very nice thing happen. Our James Comprehensive Cancer Center, we have a James Comprehensive Cancer Hospital and a Comprehensive Cancer Center grant. And comprehensive cancer centers are funded by the National Cancer Institute. They've been in operation for just about 50 years. There are just over 50 of them nationally. And you have to resubmit your grant every 5 years, and then you get the grant rated by a group of dispassionate people from around the country. And so we had our 5-year grant renewal this year, and there's a range of scores like a golf score. So 100 is the highest score they give. That's the worst you can do and still get a report back from them, I guess. And then it goes all the way down to 10, which is a perfect score. And so we had a great score before. We were doing very, very nicely, but we sent our grant application last spring, and then in the summer we got our report back from the review group, and we had 10 on our grant application. So. And let me just put that in context. It's about 2,200-page grant application. No university academic medical center had ever received a score of 10 before. Sloan Kettering Dedicated Cancer Institute in New York had received the 10 once, but only one institution had ever received a perfect score before, and again, no university. And it was based on the quality of the research, but also the quality of the community engagement, the quality of the outcomes. And I'll say, having been on review boards for grants in the past, you don't get any more money for a 10 or a 12, or there's no reason for that, except it was really quite a congratulations to us for doing a really good job of putting together something that we believe in turn serves the citizens of Ohio and the world. And so we were pleased about that. Let me say that in addition to our cancer programs, we have several things that have worked really well on the medical side as well. One that's been kind of like magic is that we worked with a thing called NeuroBridge, which was a partnership with Battelle Corporation and several departments on our university campus, several departments and schools, including the College of Engineering. And these helped a paralyzed man, a quadriplegic man, learn to move his hand and drum his fingers. In fact, now actually use a spoon to be able to feed himself soup. And this was something that was a painstaking process, but it's the kind of magic of bypassing the spinal cord where it was severed and being able to use his thoughts to move his hand. And it's a bit primitive at this point, but it's like magic to watch it happen. And just a step, I think, to something that's very important that we're moving forward. And let me say that I mentioned all these things that we're doing in medicine. I mentioned things earlier that we're doing with water. We're focusing on our global initiative on trying to do something to help develop water resources for countries where the majority of the population doesn't have access to clean water on a regular basis. And there are an incredible number of waterborne diseases that are wreaking havoc. And we see with climate change and other things that are happening that this problem is really expanding more rapidly than we had feared. And so we really have to be able to get on top of these things in the world broadly. The Zika virus that we see now in South America has gone from nowhere to an incredible problem very quickly. And we're very interested as the northern hemisphere warms up this summer in doing what can be done to limit the spread of the virus and control those mosquitoes. And so we think about some of these problems that we deal with individual patients or individual miracles that we're able to support here at home. But we also know that the entire world is connected, and we have to think about research that affects people far away from us if we're going to make this a better world for everyone, and we're working hard on that. A couple of days ago, at the City Club, a group of business and community and university leaders, including several from Ohio State, announced a partnership that will explore economic and research collaborations with Cuba. I actually had a chance to visit Cuba about 12 years ago, and one of the things that I saw in Cuba is that they were working then on West Nile virus and working on mosquito migration, and there are things about Cuba that are different than the United States. One that they do is they mandate things to happen. One of the things they'd mandated was that the 10-year-olds in the country, the fifth graders, were going to be in charge of emptying the water in vessels around potted plants on balconies. So the entire fifth grade class would go home and make sure there was no water overnight for mosquitoes to breed. And just an interesting way of looking at a public health issue. And things that we can learn from others who maybe do things in a different way that we. So we're hoping that our engagement will allow us to learn things, share things of value to them, but also learn things that might be able to help us. I'm going to speak for those of you who have prospective students or recent graduates from our university, a few great things about the Ohio State University. We have time, I think, for a few great things about university. First, we had last year's entering class had the highest ACT scores in our history, an average of just about 29. We had the greatest number of minority students, the greatest percentage of students from the top 10% of their high school, and an all-time record in numbers of applications at 46,000. This year, we're running about 10% ahead, so we'll know in a few weeks what those numbers are, but we are increasingly popular and an increasingly outstanding educational institution, and that means an awful lot to us. In addition, though, to being an outstanding educational institution, and I've mentioned several times that we were a land-grant institution to begin with and that our connection with the community is important, we believe that our civic engagement is really important, and we want to make sure that we continue to grow our civic partnerships. We want to extend our knowledge and our scholarship to improve lives in society on a regular basis in ways that people can see and touch and feel. And so part of that is to work in Central Ohio and Columbus, but also in Cleveland and other places around the state to do things that make a real difference to real people on a real basis every day. One of the things that we're using, one of the ways we're focusing part of this effort is looking at food security. Far too many people in our communities are food insecure, particularly in a state like Ohio, which has such a robust industry of agriculture and provides so much food for the community, the region, and the world. To have as many as 20 to 25% of our citizens be food insecure at a given time seems like a disconnect. And so we want to work really actively to starting with our neighborhoods, but then moving beyond to make sure we do everything that we can to address food insecurity. This summer, I visited some places in Ohio, Benton County, particular town of MacArthur we visited, looking at places that were food deserts. Benton County has no grocery store. And so it's difficult to run out and get fresh or appropriate food since there's no place in town that sells such things. And so we worked on helping to build a community garden at one of the schools that actually can grow fresh produce. And we want to look at those things that are necessary to bring people and allow people to have access to quality food and nutritious food. And that's an ongoing program. We're going to invest upwards of $100 million in that over the next decade. Faculty research, but also outreach programs in our community and across the state, and we're looking forward very much to doing that. We, in fact, have invested already about $15 million in faculty hires to do research and try to get better policies and procedures for addressing food security. In helping to do this in a broader way, we're going to have a thing called the Buckeye Summit. It was called the Volunteer Summit as we put it up on the drawing board, and we changed that now to a Buckeye Summit because it's volunteer Buckeyes. Everybody can be a Buckeye. It's a good thing. This is going to be on April 14th, and we're going to really look at ways that we as a community can address food security in practical ways that make a real difference to real people on a daily basis all across Ohio. So we'd be happy to have any of you who happen to be in Columbus on that day join us. That would be wonderful. One of the things that I've noticed is that there are Buckeyes everywhere. And we're here in Columbus. I'm walking on the street in Washington. We were on vacation in France last summer, and there are Buckeyes everywhere. And we think as we all pull together, we can do really great things to make a difference in the world. And this Buckeye Summit is going to be one step in doing that. A third component of our vision is the issue of inclusiveness and diversity. We think we have to be a model of inclusive excellence. By being an inclusive university, it means that we are taking and growing from the best that the country and the region have to offer and making ourselves the best university we can be. In fact, an interesting comment on this, we on Monday on campus previewed the movie Race, which I think is opening today. This is a movie about Jesse Owens and his life and some of the barriers that he broke now almost exactly 80 years ago. And actually, it was quite a moving story. We loved it because Ohio State was featured a lot and because his story is a great story. We also loved it because his daughters, Gloria and Marlene, were both in residence. They came and watched the film with us. They were great. Marlene is a Buckeye. She was the homecoming queen about 60 years ago, and so it's great to looking good today. So it's great to have her 55 years ago. I don't want to make her older. But great to have her here along with Stephan James, who's the lead actor in the film. We had a great audience of people from the campus, including about 250 of our student athletes, to look and see what it's like to really be excellent. And for Jesse Owens to really be able to be judged in a merit-based and transparent way in a time when those opportunities weren't available to people of great talent. So we care a lot about that. We are, though, in addition to Jesse Owens and his great story and many things that have we've seen, one of the things they showed in the film was how he was able to go to Europe and Hitler's Germany and dominate in ways that were not supposed to be possible, and that was a great triumph. But then when he returned home, there were multiple things that he couldn't do. He, in fact, had to go into the side door of places where he was being honored. When he was a student at Ohio State, he couldn't live in the dorms at Ohio State or eat in restaurants along High Street because of segregation. So there was a great disconnect between the way we celebrated him when he was on the track and what his life and opportunities were like when he was here and then after he came back. And that was really the story of the next 30, 40 years of his life. So all of these things require lots of work, and steps of progress are things that's good to celebrate, but we have to keep on working forward. And so we are really committed to the success of every student on our campus, no matter what her background happens to be or how she identifies herself or what his parents happen to do. We want to think of each of those students as an opportunity for us to really help someone to achieve at the full level of their human potential. And that means a very great deal to us. And for a complicated place like ours with, as you heard, 44,000 undergraduate students and 13,000, 14,000 graduate students on our one campus, we have people that represent the world broadly, but we are committed to each and every one of them having an outstanding experience and do everything we can to ensure that that's the case. Finally, let me say that none of what we do as a university would be possible without the support and dedication of people like you, people in our community, people from our alumni partners, our friends in the business and corporate world. We really are a public university, and we really are here to do things for the greater good of the public with the assistance and support of the public, and are pleased to be able to do that. One nice thing that we saw, some nice information that we received recently, is that we partnered with the Gallup organization, along with several other universities, to do a review of the experience of alumni in the world. And we found that our alumni had a great experience and really did better than our peer institutions in many, many ways. A couple I thought were very, very meaningful to me, and I'd love to share. They had a measure of alumni engagement. And this was, I think, the total number of people who participated in this survey across the country was more than 70,000. So lots and lots of data, lots of places. Tiny differences statistically, or percentage-wise, were statistically significant because the numbers were so robust. And they had a couple of questions that they asked throughout this long survey. One was, the question was, I can't imagine the world without blank, and that would be your university. So our alumni would have had the question, I can't imagine the world without The Ohio State University. And you would check strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, agree, or strongly agree. And then another one they had was blank was the perfect place for me. And again, strongly disagree to strongly agree. And then they looked at the number of people who said strongly agree to I can't imagine a world without my university, and my university was the perfect place for me. Strongly agree, not just the agrees, but the strongly agrees. And they found that the average for universities like ours was about 14% of people checked yes to both of those boxes. And for The Ohio State University, it was 35%. It was an overwhelming victory in this measure of true alumni engagement, people caring about the university, feeling that it made a difference, and feeling that it changed their lives in a positive way. We felt very good about that. So that Buckeye Nation is really something that's been great to be a part of. Last year we had 237,000 donors, the most in our history. We reached our fundraising goal for our But for Ohio State campaign of $2.5 billion. Actually, we exceeded that goal. The campaign continues until the fall, so we're still doing well. We're actually, last year was a record year in the amount of funding that we received. Very pleased and proud of that. This year we're about 8 to 10% ahead of that record pace for last year. So we have more people donating more generously to the support of our university now than ever before in our history, and that means so very, very much from us. So we'd say that from the days of Thomas Edison and the Wright brothers, Ohio has been the heart of innovation. From Jesse Owens, who was the fastest on Earth, to John Glenn, who was the first to circle the globe, we've been at the lead edge of innovation and the best that people could do in so many ways. Inspiration and brain power have taken us from candles to light bulbs and from railways to the skies. This is the tradition of Ohio. It's the tradition of The Ohio State University. And that is how we together will continue to change the world. Thanks very much for your time. I appreciate it.
You can sit for just a minute. Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we are very much enjoying a Friday forum featuring Dr. Michael V. Drake, president of the Ohio State University. We're going to return to him in a moment for our questions. We welcome questions from everyone, City Club members, guests, students, or those of you joining us via our radio broadcast, webcast, or our new live simulcast at the Parma Snow branch of the Cuyahoga County Public Library. Now, if you'd like to tweet a question, you can do that at the City Club, and our staff will try to work it into the program. Today's forum is the Mandel Forum on the State of Higher Education in America, made possible by a generous gift from the Mandel Foundation. Mort Mandel is here with us today, and I'd like to ask him to stand and be recognized. Thank you for your outstanding support. And now questions. So we welcome questions, as I said before, from everyone. Holding the microphones today are City Club Director of Programming, Stephanie Jansky, and Content Associate, Teddy Eisenberg. First question, please.
Thank you so much for bringing us up to date on the Ohio State University. My question turns on Senator Sanders campaigning for the idea of free college education.
Yes.
And I'd like to have your comments on that, where the money would come from, what the impact would be on the students, and what the impact would be on the university.
Well, to be fair, you'd have to ask Senator Sanders where the money would come from. There's free. There's nothing's free. So what this means is higher education that is funded by someone else, and I think that would be a policy shift that Senator Sanders would look to. I would say a couple things. First, we do everything we can to help cover the tuition costs of lower income families. And we have many programs ourselves on campus now that are doing what we can to cover as much of the tuition, and in many cases, thousands of cases, we cover all of the tuition for lower income families because we don't want there to be such a burden to entering college that anyone can enter. And I agree with all of those who say that college is really unaffordable for too many Americans, and we want to be really focused on how we do that. What we would look at then, though, is that we also have the most outstanding higher education system in the world. And we want to maintain the quality of our system while making sure that it's affordable. So we support a variety of programs, Pell Grant programs and many other things. And as I said, in our own campus, we devoted $15 million additional money last year to need-based aid. We're doing $20 million of need-based aid in addition this year and are moving in that direction. So we're very concerned about affordability, and an idea of making it free is great, except for there's an asterisk, and that is that it has to be funded, and we just want to make sure that the funding was appropriate as we went forward. But as I mentioned, we're very, very concerned about the cost of higher education and doing what we can to help mitigate that for families in need.
Could you talk for a second about your plans to attract international students?
Yes, one of the things that's a benefit of our increased profile is that we are well known across the country and around the world as one of the great bargains and one of the great values in higher education. And so there are people all over the world who seek to come here. We've done this, all of us, particularly in the research university community, have done this for decades, where a significant fraction of our graduate student population has come from people around the world who send their best and brightest. Many of them then stay here and do great work with and for us, and that would be the case here in Cleveland and in every community that we could travel to. And also they actually go back and start and help the economies in their home countries, but as we've traveled around, they become great partners for us, and so it's great to have that world and global connectivity. Over the last several years, we've all had an increase in the number of undergraduate students who are coming from international backgrounds as well. And among the things that they do for us, they increase the diversity of point of view and perspective that we have on campus, and I think make the campuses a more rich and robust learning environment. I happened to go to college a few years back, and I remember when I arrived at my college, one of the things that impressed me was the number of countries that were represented with my fellow classmates, places I'd never been and had rarely heard of, but now I had people from those places in classes and in the dorm and in the cafeteria with me. And I mentioned I teach a class. It's a freshman seminar, and it's a critical thinking seminar, and in our jargon, it's a flipped class, so the didactic work is done by the students at home, and then we come and discuss that didactic work, and it's not a thing where we say, learn these 5 facts and then tell me these 5 facts I used to know, back. It's not that kind of a class. It's a class where they get the information outside of class, and then they come to us, and we ask them to discuss the meaning of the information. We talk about civil rights, and we say, was this the right move for the government to make? Did they do it too soon or too late or too much? And so not what happened when, but let's talk about the implications of that. I say that because I find those discussions are made much more robust by people from different points of view, and I can distinctly remember a couple of occasions where I learned something because it was phrased differently from a student who had gone to high school in a different country. And I'll tell you the exact example that I remember all the time. We were talking about the Civil War, and we're saying this, that, the other, the Civil War, and this happened, blah, blah, blah. And a student who was from the Middle East, who happened to be in the class, but had gone to high school in the Middle East, said, well, when the American Civil War started, blah, 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 and what she said that I'd never heard before was the American Civil War. And I said, that's, for her, actually, a Civil War is something that's present today. And so that was really caused me to pause and take a step back and think of what I was doing in a different way. And so her different perspective was, I think, extremely helpful to all of us having these discussions. And if we're going to be a part of a world economy, be a world university, having at least some students that represent that world helps us to be a better learning environment. So, yes.
I had a question about the fanaticism of the alumni. I have business partners that are Ohio State alumni that won't even set foot in Ann Arbor. How do you develop that sort of loyalty from your alumni? It's impressive.
You said a word that confused me. It was, what was that? I'm sorry, I just don't understand the term. Oh, my wife said it's a city in that state up north. I'm so impressed by the level of connectivity and the amount of love that our students have for our university. I went to a different university. I taught at different universities before we were here. We were all proud alums. We didn't have the level of love that Buckeyes have for the Ohio State University, which is absolutely an amazing and beautiful thing. Where does that come from? I don't know. I'll give one example. I was having dinner with a a group of alumni a couple of months ago, and there was a student sitting next to me at the table, and there was a banquet, so it was noisy, and so I leaned over and said, nobody can hear us. I'd love to hear about your experience. How's it going for you? And she said, I'm having a great experience. I love it here. I said, great. And I said, but let's say on a 1 to 10 scale, how would you rate your experience? And she looked down for a minute and looked over at me and said, I'd have to rate it a 20. And I thought, good answer, good answer. But that's really what it's like. I over and over again, all day, every day, I hear how much our students love it. I hear how much our alumni love it. It really is a community of people learning that they're being supported and being the best that they can be. And we're pleased and proud to be a part of it.
Hi, good afternoon, Dr. Drake, and welcome to Cleveland. My question is around the relationship with Congress. So one of the things that is of interest to me is the ability to get things done in our current political climate in Washington. And I think it's fantastic that you have an advocate in Congresswoman Joyce Beatty down in Columbus. I think she's a fantastic person and a great advocate for the community. So could you kind of talk about the importance of establishing and maintaining a relationship with the federal government, as well as maybe identify opportunities in the past where the different political parties have come together to advance higher education in the state?
Well, great question. I appreciate it. A big part of my job is working with our legislative representatives in the state house and then also the federal government. And I had the great pleasure of having the privilege of doing this for many years before I was here as well. And my approach, I began in the health sciences. And my approach always was, if I had something that I wanted them to support, I needed to think about how I could package or phrase it so that they could see the value of it and then give it to them in a way that they could say yes to it and help support us. And it gave me the experience of being able to work with members from both sides of the aisle, from actually entirely opposing points of view, to say, great, we have those things where we know we don't agree, but here's some things that we can do together that I think will make the world a better place for your constituents, my constituents, no matter who they are. So I had a chance to kind of practice that for a long time from the health sciences point of view. And then when I moved to a life that focused on higher education, I used really the same approach to address them from higher education. And so we have actually very good support from members from both sides of the aisle. I'll see Congresswoman Beatty and Congressman Stivers and Congressman Teaberry next week when I'll be in Washington for an APLU meeting. And we visit them routinely and often. We meet with both of our senators. We have Senator Brown and Senator Portman, and they're in different parties, but they are great supporters of higher education and the Ohio State University. And it's our job really to continue to work with them to do what we can to provide opportunities for all of our citizens. And so it's an important, critical, necessary part of our work. Let me say that I was so pleased then to work with the Ohio State Legislature and the governor this year when, as I said, we made the deal that we kind of would work on cutting our cost and freezing tuition first before they even passed their budget. And then I think by having a really good relationship with them, they came back and passed a budget that actually had a little more than we would have accepted as the minimum okay. So it really came out, they did even a little more than we would have hoped for us. And I think it's because we had a good relationship all year long, helped them to see the value of what they were doing, and it turned out to be a win-win. We do well, they do well, the community does well, and that's the way we like to have it.
Could you please comment on what seems to be an increase nationally in the number of college administrators relative to the growth of the student body?
Yes, that's an important question, and it's an interesting one to look at, and needs to be looked at with some granularity. So let me give you an answer that's an overwhelmingly true answer, although it may not be the complete answer, okay? So the overwhelmingly true answer is that when those numbers are published, and I see them all the time, at our university, for instance, they include employees at the medical center as well as employees on the main campus. And so if we hire someone who's a director of medical oncology or whatever else, that shows up as an administrator. If we hire a counselor for our students looking at student mental health issues, that shows up as an administrator. If we hire a Title IX counselor, that shows up as an administrator and not a faculty member. And because of regulation and sensitivity in a variety of areas, we're required to have, honestly, thousands more people in those jobs than we would have had a generation ago doing work that is for data collection and sharing with others on behalf of making us a more regulated enterprise. I'm not saying we don't want to be overregulated, of course, but I'm saying that there are a lot of regulatory requirements that cause us to do those things. And so we look at that balance and try to make sure that we're adding value as we do that. We also, though, are very interested in making sure that we support the faculty in a robust way. And so we actually were meeting just day before yesterday with our faculty about things that we can do to help continually increase the numbers of faculty members. I mentioned the state did a great job of increasing our support this year, but I will say that for the past 2 decades, there's been a steady decline in state support. And so having us support more faculty members, more students, do a better job with less and less money has been a challenge, and we're looking for making sure that we have the support necessary to maintain the size of the faculty as we go forward. Great.
That's it. Thank you very much. Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we have been enjoying a Friday forum with Dr. Michael V. Drake, President of The Ohio State University. I'd like to give special thanks to our table sponsors today, Cuyahoga Community College, Medical Mutual, the Center for Community Solutions, and The Ohio State University. We thank you all for your support. Thank you, Dr. Drake. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This forum is now adjourned.